I'm going to continue on the same topic as I spoke last week. I was so excited about it, but then I realized maybe so maybe I realized actually there were certain things. I guess it was God telling me you forgot the most important thing. So we'll see about that. So I'm going to go back to True Mother's words. This is a very special year. We have high expectation. This is going to be the dragon year, and big things are changing. And already I can feel the spirit here from the young people coming from America here, inspire us. And we had other volunteers, so it really feels like maybe something's really going to happen this year. So let me read again, but now I'm going to emphasize a different part of the True Mother's words. So in this year of the blue dragon, as we take bold and strong steps centered on true parents towards a heavenly unified Korea and a heavenly unified world in attendance of heavenly parent on earth, may all blessed families, ambassadors for peace, and all good and righteous people here on earth listen to heaven's voice. Throw away everything that is unfulfilled in front of heaven until now, and become people who fulfill their duties as filial children, patriots and holy sons and daughters towards heavenly parent on the path to a hope-filled future. Therefore, it's my prayer that all members of Family Federation within the Unificationist community will fulfill their responsibility to guide humanity towards becoming such people that in good health they will advance towards the completion of the providence. This is a big task. So we are in a period of Lent, and as I mentioned last time, then again, it's still true. We're still in the Lent period, for the fasting period. Supposedly, it is a reminder to fast is to give up something in order to gain something else. Lent gives us a time for reflection, prayer, and time to grow in faith. And this aspect of religious life, many people, or I used to think, was very boring and struggling. But it is to gain something more and to open our hearts and reminder. But what I realized in life through my life is that doesn't matter if you live a religious life or not a religious life. You're going to go through struggles anyway. So you might as well do it for some bigger purpose than not, right? So that is the question: how do we end these big struggles in life and the world? And we see these wars and struggles, which I'm sure concerns each one of us. And it's about actually understanding, distinguishing good from evil, to understand what is our right path, what's our right attitude, and that's what we're all about, or our spiritual life is all about. And of course, is then how do we unify the world? It's a big task. Everyone wants to think about it, but how do we really do it in a good way? So what's Mother's suggestion here? So last time I used this anecdote, remember, with the football team, I was so excited. And as if you like sports, you know that it's a big rivalry and intense, and you think the opponent is evil, actually, because he's doing against your own purpose. But competition is not evil, and that's some people many talk about that, ideal world would be boring because, everyone would just love it like that. It would be boring, they think. But should not be boring, right? Ideal world should not be boring. It should be exciting, dynamic. And it's all about, actually, when we learn from competition, is to find a common ground. And that is to understand our mutual perspective in life. So how do we do that? And then this is what I want to stress this time, is that, yes, in the Bible, right, there is this famous competition between Cain and Abel. And really, when you know the story that Cain made some offerings. He was the farmer giving the farming, and the other one offered his sheep. Abel's offered his sheep, and they both did offerings. So the thing is, I think I like to stress that I think worthwhile to stress is actually that they both wanted to do the offerings. They both actually believed in God. They both had a desire to do good. So in that sense, both were good. But then what happened was that actually Cain's offering was rejected and Abel's were accepted. And then you can think about what is this? Why did God do like that? Why did he reject Cain's offering and accept Abel's offering? That was unfair. So then when I read a little bit comments about this, people look at, this probably was the offering itself it was something problem with Cain's offering. And then, of course, everyone basically understands it's a mythology, so they compare this with hunters and farmers, and this kind of rivalry in human history. So, of course, there are people who have social different interests, and they struggle with each other. And that, of course, is a reflection of our time today. People have social, economical, different interests, personal interests, aspiration, and they struggle with each other, and then they fight with each other. And it seems like endless human dilemma. And that this struggle is, of course, because they don't have a finding common ground. They have a personal, very subjective perspective of things. But the other story, which the principle connects us with, is, of course, Jacob versus Esau. And that was also the same story repeat itself. And I don't know, so the principle does this unique thing that actually point out it's something more. And we know through divine principle, we understand there's something more in these relationships. And so God, again, blesses one person, and the other one is rejected, and they get upset and they fight with each other. The difference is, like here, Jacob was trying to find a common ground with Esau. He knew he had stolen the offering. He knew why Esau was upset. So he tried to humble himself and then embrace Esau, right? So they could do that. And that was because they had found a common perspective of things. So this with how we see things and how we feel about things is a very important task in our lives, right? And we have different feelings and we have different emotions, and that's why fight argues. And the question is then, how can we resolve these things? So then actually during this week I heard a very interesting a man who had been working in the secret agency. He was working for the secret government. Maybe I shouldn't say which government, but he was recruiting spies in other countries, and how he could connect and use how he communicated, how he persuaded, make people spy on another country. And then he used these terms, perception and perspective, and I think this is what life is all about. And it was a very clear illustration of how do you deceive someone to do something for your sake and against their interest, and how do you transform their interest to make them to feel that they change their interest, because he realized that people have driven by emotions and desires, but also ideology is very important. So it is very much, you can understand from this, it was very much a mind game going on here. How to understand people's interests and what is right and what is wrong. And this, of course, we look at life in generally. So this Cain-Abel story, right? And the principle we talk about it's not just two individuals existed a long time ago. It can, of course, be very personal in our personal relationship, but it's also very systematic. It's big issues. It's very much about thoughts and ideas. What are the good ideas and what are the bad ideas? And they tend to fight with each other and struggle with each other. That's why we have a lot of these political and social conflicts, because people have different perspectives of things. And that is really, so his key point was that actually how you manipulate people, you play on people's emotions. And of course people have a perspective of things, which is more like theoretical points. And of course he played on people's mindset, that we have sort of this more analytical side in our mind, we know that, and we have a more emotional side. Because the emotional side is connected more to our body, impulses. So we usually react with our, what he said, people usually react with their gut feelings. But he said, you should never trust your gut feelings, because that is the one we can manipulate. Another way we can see from the fallen man, these stories comes back again, how people trigger and deceive people, seduce people. We know from Adam and Eve how it's all about manipulating people's feelings and emotions for something else. And of course they can use this in advertising and commercial people. People say you commercial trigger people to do certain things emotionally. So that's why we like to think about that we're rational beings, but very often we are obviously not. We act against our own self-interest, a long-term interest. So the question is then to develop our mind and cool ourselves down, and that is actually what all culture and all religion try to teach us, right? To teach us to be more controlled, not be so impulsive, to reflect, give us good values, so we start thinking about it instead of just reacting emotionally on things. And we know ourselves from our own experiences that sometimes we are triggered, we are getting upset, so we want to hit back, so it is a natural instinct. But how do we then, that's why we need to also reflect again, why did I emotionally do like that? Or why someone else did something emotional to me? So I can be, then think about, oh, that was just their emotion. It doesn't mean that they are evil. It's just, we need to learn something from this. We need to have a good interaction. So I need to understand their perception of their perspective, how they felt about it, but also try to understand their perception of things and how we can find common perception to unite. And that is, of course, what the principle is all about. And I think that's, so we see this in our struggle between Cain and Abel and Cain, right? They have this individual purpose, which is naturally, so when they are tested, so God wants to actually develop their perspective, so they want to develop their own understanding of things. So when they don't have common government, then they struggle with each other. And then the question is that where does this struggle start from? So I would say that we can think about Abel. We think about Abel as the good guy, right? He's the victim of Cain's crime. But why is then was Cain triggered by Abel? So we can say, if we compare that with Jacob and Esau, right, we can understand Cain was probably very proud, this is we can see in life. You got a blessing, or I'm very proud of myself, I'm successful, I'm better, I'm cheering for myself, I'm victorious, I'm very happy. So the Cain reacting towards this, right, so he feels very resentful. And that's where the crime comes. So, of course, externally we can say very clearly, Cain is committing the crime against Abel. But on the other hand, Abel actually probably triggered his reaction. And he has to also feel, if he's looking through a bigger perspective, he has to feel somehow a sense of responsibility for it. Unable to see that purpose, that is what leads to oppression and conflicts and wars. Then we can go so backward. People are upset about someone else, and nobody else able to embrace themselves. So this is the same then Jacob and Esau obviously had different perspectives, but they managed to resolve the different perspectives and to unite. And so that Jacob has this unite with each other and work together. So why is this important in life? What can we learn from this in our lives? Yeah, we have this mind-body problem. Father always talks about mind and body, how we should unite, how these different aspects of ourselves, how we unite, align our own will and our action with each other on an individual level. But it's also a bigger issue, I would say, systematic issue, like we talk about values in society. How can the world unite? What kind of values to bring the people together? So traditionally, people felt that that's why we have culture, that's why we have religion, because it gives us good values. But then people start understanding, but if there is no God, then where does the values come from? So that's why some people start discussing, well, there are no values. If there's no God, we cannot prove there's a God, then we just make up values. So so many people start thinking that no, there is no values. We just go along as we think. But then again, now people start realizing, but how should we bring people together? So now new values coming up and discussion about what are these values, what they are. So, but the most disturbing thing I find many times that people say that they're using values to attack other people. They say, we attack this group because they have no good values. So we attack them because they have the wrong values. I have better values. But values should be something which brings us together. They should be so great and so beautiful that we can all understand that how we can work together. And it is like this game field. When we think about a sports game I talked about, like if you play a game, in chess, you have to have same kind of principles and laws. Or a sports game, we talked about football. So FIFA football, right? Play certain rules and you play a certain way, and you have your tactics so you can achieve that goal. Well, in America, they play football according to the NFL rules, the different rules, and there's no problem as long as you understand the rules. So they cannot play with each other, the different teams. But And there's a problem if one team play with one rules and then another team play with different rules, then they cannot, there's a chaos in the system, right? And as we can say in this world today, people say there are different types of religion, so there's a chaos in the system. But actually, if we understand that actually these religions, these principles are actually derived from something more universal, something more fundamental, then we can sort of have cohesion in the system, and we understand those values. And that is, of course, we talk about the family value like some fundamental, deep spiritual values. And again, I see sometimes people talk about different religion, they want to unite the religion, but it's centered on their religion instead of understanding the higher principles that there is behind. So to have a unified world, we have to somehow transcend beyond the religion, beyond each culture. Doesn't mean that the different cultures are itself a problem, but we need to anyway transcend beyond that. And I think that is actually what's happening today in the world. God wants us to become like world citizens, like have a world mind, a broader mind perspective. So that's how we can come. And that's why there are tensions in the system, but no one really had we need to learn to articulate that broader vision. So it is very much about how we're practicing these beliefs. Because it's very important that we just have a broad vision. We need to practice in our daily life. So when we confront different things, then we need to be reminded, this is an opportunity for me to grow as a human being. I can reflect about myself. So challenge and the difficulties and obstacles, a confrontation, it doesn't need to have to be bad. It can be something I can learn from, so I can grow my heart and evolve myself to become a more like a figure resembling God's ideals. So that is like, do we have choice in life? People say we don't have choices. Yes, we have a choice. Our choices are in this given system to decide to play along the same game. I mean, in the system, if we understand it, then we can use our tactics and our approaches, so we can have this competition. But we need to understand that we ultimately, in a bigger scale, work together. So with that mindset, I think that we can reach out to all different types of people's political views, or they have different religious views, different culture views. You just need to identify what is it we can bring together, instead of being stuck with resentment for what other people think differently, but how we can sort of reconcile our differences to bring it together. So it is very much, in one sense we can say, a very theoretical project, but it's also a very personal project, because we're always going to meet people with different ideas, different perspectives, and we need to sort of learn how to listen to them, to understand their underlying resentment and bitterness they have, and how one can help to resolve them, and how it can be in their interest also to resolve their own historical resentment and difficulties. Because we see this in people's private life, they have resentment from childhood or ancestors, whatever happened. But we see this also in nations, obviously, right? And there's wars going on in the world. We understand that this just didn't pop up. It's a historical conflict which has been unresolved. So then people wonder, where is God in this? But I think God is all over the place, anxiously hoping that we should solve it. And that, I think, is what Tremada helping for us to be part of this process, that we can be the people who can give people the vision that we can actually solve these problems. We cannot just say, these are unsolvable, or we just have to defeat Abel, we had to defeat Cain, or usually we think ourselves as Abel, right? So we had to crush and defend ourselves against this vicious Cain. Instead, we had to learn to understand, why is Cain feeling the way he's feeling? That was really Jacob's vision, heart. He could understand why is he so resentful? Yeah, I did some mistake. I did something I can improve in that relationship. So I think that when we grow like this in our hearts, then we can really become that instrument for God to bring the world together.